Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Good afternoon, Russell. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Welcome to St Paul's. I'm pleased to welcome you all today to introduce our next government plan, should it be approved by the States Assembly, of course. I'll introduce the main points of our government plan, and then alongside Senator Gorst and the Deputy of Greville, Deputy Labby, we will provide more detail about the strategic priorities we are focusing on today, creating a sustainable, vibrant economy and skilled local workforce for the future. And at the end, we'll be happy to try to answer your questions. Before I start, I should also mention that the event is being filmed live on Facebook, so the audience isn't being filmed, so if you want to remain anonymous, you don't have to give your name when you ask a question. And we got into double figures yesterday evening with our Facebook audience, so that was quite encouraging. Right, so first I want to outline our core principles for the plan. It must be funded each year so it doesn't leave debts for future states, assemblies and governments to clear up. We're making decisions today that will benefit and protect future generations of islanders. We're preparing for the future so we can withstand shocks to our economy and afford care in old age for those who need it. We're investing in the 5 strategic priorities and in modernising government, as we agreed in the Common Strategic Policy. We're investing in the fabric of our island, committing £349 million in capital spending over the next 4 years. We've established an efficiencies programme which will substantially fund that new investment. And while we're spending more in every year, we are still balancing the budget. The Council of Ministers and the States Assembly agreed 5 priorities. Firstly, every member of this government has pledged to children that we will make Jersey the best place to grow up. We've been putting foundations in place over the past year, continuing the work begun by the previous Council of Ministers under the leadership of Senator Gorst. We'll support, improve and invest in our children's services. We'll review our education system and put it on a sustainable financial footing. And we'll make sure that children have a voice. We'll improve Islanders' well-being and mental and physical health. This is about moving away from focusing only on physical health to giving mental health at least equal attention. And we're putting an extra £3.2 million next year into mental health services so we can improve the much needed facilities and services. Our new model of care is also about shifting away from hospital-based services to more investment in Islanders' well-being, in prevention and in community services closer to home. That includes an extra £500,000 in 2020 to encourage more active lifestyles. I won't summarise now about creating a sustainable, vibrant economy, as we're going to be hearing about that in a little more detail shortly. We're taking action on income inequality and housing. Access to good quality housing is one of the major factors in people's sense of well-being. We've challenged the Housing Policy Development Board to think long-term, and their proposals will come before the Assembly next year. We've already earmarked £10 million for affordable housing in 2021. We're also tackling inequality and supporting inclusion. This includes an additional £500,000 to improve support for disabled people and their carers. Jersey's environment is not only beautiful, it's crucial to our quality and way of life. It's a resource that underpins our communities, our economy, and our global reputation. We're embracing the task of tackling the climate emergency with energy and with pace. Our Climate Emergency Fund will help us to deliver a new sustainable transport plan. It will help us to move quickly on other low-carbon initiatives too, and we've launched the Island Plan review process. These are just some of the headlines in this government plan that illustrate the investment and the change we will be bringing forward to deliver on our 5 strategic plan priorities. But we are also committed to modernising the government. I, along with other States members, have consistently said that fundamental change to our public services is required, and that will take time. It will involve difficult decisions, and it will require investment. Modernising government underpins this whole plan. We won't be able to deliver our ambitions or the investment in our priorities unless we modernise our public services and the way we do government. Before I move on to how we are financing the government plan, it's important to explain how the plan differs to what went before. Previously, we presented our budget separately from our planned activities. But the government plan brings together both spending and income, enabling us specifically to link our finances to the activities we plan to deliver. The plan also offers us the flexibility of a rolling 4-year plan rather than the rigidity of the medium-term financial plan, which fixed our budget annually for 4 years. We're also considering our funds across the board instead of in isolation of each other. We're prioritising long-term sustainability, not just of our finances, but also the health and well-being of our islanders. Moving on to our finances, we have followed some core principles. Long-term public finances that are sustainable for both the government and the island are key. A robust capital spending programme which invests heavily in long-term benefits for the island, investment in more efficient technology and processes and in our people. Setting fees at a fair level that enables us to deliver the service islanders need and want. And finally, designing taxes that focus on changing the approach and behaviours of islanders to support our priorities, to improve islanders' health and well-being, and that protect and value our environment. But I would like to stress it's efficiencies first, and any changes to our tax structures later. We've also carefully considered and taken on board the recommendations from experts. Earlier this year, the Fiscal Policy Panel advised the government to protect ourselves against any future potential financial crisis, particularly with the current uncertainty surrounding Brexit. And this advice included running surpluses throughout the period of this government plan, using the current more buoyant economy as an opportunity to raise more capital and to reduce spending. Continue to boost our stabilisation funds, addressing the forecast future deficit in our long-term care fund, and finally implementing the efficiencies programme. So following the Fiscal Policy Panel's advice, we'll continue to bolster the balance of our investment funds to help insulate the island economy against any future shocks. We began the process this year when we transferred £50 million to the Stabilisation Fund following approval from the States Assembly. And we'll continue to grow this fund further over the government plan period with a deposit of £20 million next year from our consolidated fund and £16 million a year thereafter. Similarly, we'll also continue to grow the balance of our strategic reserve, or our rainy day fund as it's come to be known, by reinvesting our investment returns back into the fund. Meanwhile, we use our consolidated fund, which currently has a healthy balance of £161 million, to fund our much-needed capital programme. That's in addition to the transfers into our stabilisation fund, allocations for housing, and £5 million to Pump Prime, our new climate emergency fund. Our long-term care fund was set up in 2013 to help islanders cover their long-term care costs. Our ageing population means that twice as many people will need help in the future, and forecasts show that the current 1% contribution rate, that the fund will run out of money in the next 7 to 8 years. So we're proposing a 1% increase in the contribution rate and a rise in the contribution cap to ensure we continue to support people's care needs into the future. And just as most people don't pay tax at the headline rate of 20%, the long-term care rate is reduced for all marginal rate taxpayers. So most people won't pay the full extra 1%. This increase in contributions ensures the sustainability of the fund for more than 25 years and ensures vulnerable islanders are protected from increasing care costs. As with the long-term care fund, we will continue to protect the balance of the social security fund to ensure it remains sustainable for future generations. We are proposing improvements to family-friendly benefits as well, which will be funded through a small increase in employer contributions. So now let's come to our spending plans. This chart shows that our commitment to increase spending over the next 4 years to help improve islanders' services and facilities. The grey bars show how our spending, over the last 4 years went, and the green bars show our proposed steady increases in the government plan period, over the government plan period. So spending will rise from 824 million this year to around £1 billion in 2023. We've developed a capital spending programme which makes long-term investments in the fabric of our island, as well as funding cost-saving initiatives. We will invest in refurbishing and replacing outdated infrastructure and in creating, improving and extending assets that support the delivery of vital services. And we're also going to invest in our public realm. This will mainly be funded through our consolidated fund, which has grown significantly as a result of the island's strong economic performance. We're committed to making £40 million of efficiencies next year and £100 million over the 4 years of the planned period. There's been a lot of conjecture recently about these efficiencies and the detail that surrounds them. And we've committed to sharing the full details with the States Assembly and Islanders in October, and we're giving scrutiny advance sight of our plans as soon as possible. But just to put things into context, this discussion around the £40 million is actually about less than 5% of next year's budget. So we've got most of the detail in place. And whilst we all recognise the importance of this final 5%, I would just like to keep that in context of the bigger picture. States members and islanders already have the information on the other 95% of the plan. So when we publish all of the details, I hope you will be reassured that the efficiencies plan is about doing things better and in a more productive way, and cutting out duplication, repetition and waste. As we explained in the government plan, the efficiencies are in 4 main areas: a modern workforce, a more efficient and productive services, commercial government operations, and more efficient government structures. Moving on to budget measures. You should have all been given or picked up a handout when you arrived which summarises the different taxation measures we are proposing in 2020. So I won't go through the detail. These budget measures have been carefully designed to ensure the government is balancing our spending with our income without putting too much pressure on the taxpayer. The reduced income tax thresholds broadly cover the proposed increases in duties. For 2020, and we've structured our taxes accordingly to help us deliver against our corporate strategic plan priorities to improve islanders' health and well-being and the environment. We've put the highest duty increases on tobacco and high-strength alcohol to encourage islanders to make healthier choices. And we've proposed increases in fuel duty to fund the new climate emergency fund to help us tackle climate change and to do our bit on the global stage. Finally, in summary, I'd like to stress that this is a government plan for sustainable well-being, for responsible spending, and for delivering the priorities agreed in the common strategic policy. We're going to move on now smoothly, I hope, into the economy section of which is the detail of today's session. And at each of these public meetings, we've been focusing on one of the 5 corporate strategic priorities. So now that you've had an overview of the whole plan, I want to, together with Senator Dawson, Deputy Levy, give you an overview of how we're going to create a sustainable, vibrant economy and skilled and local workforce for the future. I will present part of it before handing over to Senator Gorst, who will then hand over to Deputy Labby. If it all goes to plan, she'll hand back to me and we get to some questions. That's the plan, just so in case anything happens to me in the meantime, you're all informed. So, we're going to do this by delivering an economy framework to improve productivity, by nurturing and strengthening our financial services industry, by enhancing our international profile and promoting our island identity, and by improving the skills in our local workforce so that we're less reliant on inward migration. We do this all, of course, with an eye on Brexit. We are preparing to deliver the best outcome we can, whatever transpires next month. Well, it says next month on here, but probably in the next 10 minutes or so, or half an hour. It's that unstable at the moment. Now, this 4-year vision comes down to the prosperity of our island and the funding of the services on which we all rely. That all depends on the strength of our economy. Businesses in Jersey provide job and career opportunities, put money into our economy and create wealth. The wealth generates the taxes that we, the government, and the people of Jersey rely on to sustain the public services that we all require. Without a vibrant economy, which can be sustained over the long term, none of us can continue to enjoy the same quality of life. So how will we do it? In the coming year, we will develop and deliver the first phase of a new economic framework. We are collecting the evidence and developing the policies and plans for each of the principal sectors in our economy. These will lead to proposals for improving the productivity and sustainable economic growth, that in turn will guide the government's economic investment and support the short and medium and long term. We will give financial support to Visit Jersey for route marketing and in 2021 for the promotion of short breaks, and we want to increase demand outside of the high season. That is so important to improving productivity in our visitor economy. We'll also invest in Digital Jersey to support diversification and growth and continued important investment in our digital policy framework. That investment and support will help us protect tourism, fisheries and agriculture, and help firms in those sectors improve their productivity. We will also establish and we will also establish a financial stability board to help assess the big risks and to consider how we mitigate them. The board will help us weather any international economic shocks. 1% of our budget is dedicated now to Jersey's arts, heritage and culture, and that investment will be used to maintain our heritage offering and to support our arts and culture bodies to evolve into the future. And the preservation and promotion of our island language will be supported with investment in up to 7 Jerrier teachers. We will also continue to develop Fort Regent for the long term, which is now, I'm pleased to say, a real piece of work in progress. I know that for many people, our migration policy is key, and the Migration Policy Development Board have been working for some time on it. Our aim is to bring forward a practical, deliverable policy. Jersey's businesses need to bring in people with specific skills and experiences, but we have to balance that need against the impact that migration has on our island. We have to ensure that everyone who's here has a roof over their head, that our environment is protected, and there are many factors to consider in reaching that balance, and it's a complex issue, and one that the island has been wrestling with for many years. Finally, to underpin a successful and sustainable economy, we need to ensure that we provide the investment in developing an engaged and agile workforce. We're committed to working with industry to develop and implement a new post-16 education and lifelong learning strategy to support the Future Economy programme. This will transform access to relevant, high quality education and training, bringing into the island wherever possible, and equipping islanders with the skills that we will protect and sustain our economy, and it will maintain a vibrant society. I'm now going to hand over to Senator Gorst, who will cover other areas of the government plan aimed at keeping a sustainable economy.
Deputy Chief Minister, thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to talk to two slides. This plan is a plan that recognises the importance of maintaining positive international relations around the globe, because those positive international relations actually benefit local businesses, and they are, as you can see from the plan, a priority for the government. We have been preparing for Brexit since the 2016 referendum, where the British public said that they wish to leave the European Union. And as part of that preparation, we've been working extremely closely with our other Crown Dependency colleagues in Guernsey and in the Isle of Man, so that we can act in concert and quickly, whatever the outcome is. And as the Deputy Chief Minister said, rather than, as we get nearer to these dates, there being more certainty, there is the reverse. We are more uncertain about what that outcome will be, and therefore we must continue to prepare. This is a plan which also continues investment which was previously provided for by contingencies in our overseas representation, in our London office, in our office in Brussels, and across the globe in priority international markets, building strong and positive relationships which lead to trade and economic growth. This also is a plan which continues to resource the external relations team, and one of the new areas in this plan is enhancing our work with the EU member states. So we already have a Channel Island Brussels office. What this plan does is provide resource for a standalone, not only out of Jersey and London, but also on the continent as well, enhanced engagement with EU member states, and you'll recognise the importance of that as the UK leaves the European Union. It also ensures the delivery of the global market strategy in delivering and establishing new international agreements, again, agreements which support trade and better build relationships, build access to markets, and build positive visibility of Jersey around the globe. This is a plan which also recognises the continued importance of financial services and that sector to our economic well-being. And in 2020 and beyond, we are dedicating in this plan additional resource to the development of Jersey's reputation as a well-regulated, innovative and internationally cooperative jurisdiction. So that involves giving further support to Jersey Finance Limited, so that the new office in New York can be appropriately funded in the years to come. It also allocates extra resource to ensuring that we have the very best of reports from international bodies that come and review what we do. So it's extra resource for fighting financial crime, which will enable us to continue to engage positively with the OECD, with the European Commission, and also show that we are meeting those standards when Moneyval come and do their assessment in a couple of years' time. And finally, of course, as you would expect, and as the Deputy Chief Minister has been talking about over the last couple of days, there is money in this plan to deal with no-deal Brexit. The Stabilisation Fund has already had money put into it, and this plan proposes to put money in throughout the course of the plan as well, which means that we will be able to weather that economic downturn should it come as a result of no deal Brexit. That's my 2 slides. I will hand over now to the Minister for International Development.
Thank you. Well, I've only got 1 slide, so we're diminishing slowly. For over a century, Jersey Overseas Aid has worked to alleviate the suffering of those still afflicted by poverty, conflict and natural disasters. We have built schools and clinics on 6 continents, provided emergency food and shelter, and given hope and dignity to millions of hungry, sick and displaced people. Almost as extraordinary, through our volunteering projects and homegrown charities, nearly 1,000 of us have done so in person. We give humanitarian aid, just as we, as an island, received it 75 years ago. However, in recent years, our contributions have stagnated, and we have slipped backwards against international benchmarks. In this plan, we will reverse this real-term decline, first restoring Jersey Overseas Aid budget to 2015 levels in tax and GVA terms, and then gradually increasing it as a proportion of the size of our economy. As well as transforming millions of lives, our overseas aid programme is an investment in our long-term future. It reminds the world that we are a generous, outward-looking and responsible global player, which conforms to international standards, but also plays a key role in changing the narrative about Jersey, and will help to establish the island as a centre for philanthropy and impact investment. This is an investment in Jersey's international reputation and our long-term future. The government plan also includes a commitment to foster and promote a strong and inclusive sense of island identity. It features as a unifying theme referenced directly and indirectly under every strategic priority. We want a sustainable, vibrant economy to protect our environment and to retain a sense of place, culture and distinctive local identity. We also want to promote social inclusion and to further the island's interest, profile and reputation internationally. To achieve this, we need an island proud of its varied cultural and economic heritage and confident of its place in the world. We are creating an Island Identity Policy Development Board, which will look at ways to build a stronger, more inclusive sense of island identity. It will seek to provide common focal points for our growing and increasingly diverse population and help the island protect its unique culture and varied talents as part of a positive and coherent international personality. We think Jersey is special, and as we develop our economy, we should also focus on protecting, promoting and enhancing the distinctive identity and international profile of our unique island home. I'll now hand back to Lyndon, who I believe is going to take all the questions.